Well, welcome. We are very fortunate to have joining us today Jill Baskin, who is the Chief Marketing Officer of the Hershey Company. And she is here to share some of her perspective of dealing with the pandemic. And she's joining myself. I'm Dave Reibstein, a marketing professor here at the Wharton School. And I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Raghu Iyengar, who is also the director of Wharton Customer Analytics. So, Jill, welcome and glad to have you with us.
Well, thank you for asking me.
Let's just start off by, you telling us a little bit about your background and how long you've been at the Hershey Company and in your current position.
I've been at the Hershey Company about 3 years now. Um, Previous to that, I worked at Mondelez and Kraft. So I worked at Kraft, and Kraft split in half into two companies. I was lucky enough to be given the choice. I went with the Mondelez side. At the time, it was purported to be the faster growing, more exciting side. And so I
Right.
took that leap. Um, uh, and that was fun for a while, but at least initially, they're doing better now. But we, I think, reorganized every 6 months. And when Hershey came calling, I moved to Hershey, and it's been a very good move for me. I really love working at the Hershey Company, and I often tell people it's the best job I ever had. Um, and before all that, for 20 years, I worked at the Leo Burnett Company. So I come from the advertising side, and my first jump over to brand was when I went to Kraft.
Wonderful. So thank you again, Jill, for joining us. The last few months have been clearly very tough for many people. I would love to get your perspective, how things have been at Hershey's. What are some changes you've seen, perhaps in terms of how you allocate marketing budget or any other things that you think are ones that kind of keep popping up?
Well, the thing about the pandemic is it really feels this way to me that there have just been, it's been so unfair in so many ways. But it's actually been very good for the Hershey Company. I almost feel embarrassed saying that. And that's what I've seen across the board with all my CMO friends, that some have had the great fortune during the pandemic and others have not. Um, and it had nothing to do with preparation or anything like that. It's really what happens in something like this. I saw it actually when I was at Kraft during the financial downturn, which was that people returned to home activities. And of course, during the pandemic, everyone's been locked down at home. And one of the great comforts is candy.
Mhm.
And also, it gives you a lot more opportunities to have dessert at home and have make things at home. And our products are part of all of that. So while it really hurt our C-store business, which is a huge part of our business, there are in normal times, the trips um, to and from work, went way down. C-store traffic went way down. C-store being convenience store, drugstore went way, way down. And that hurt us tremendously. It was offset by the tremendous increase in at-home consumption. So it really helped us, and we've been one of the winners in the pandemic.
So, Jill, I'm a little bit curious about that. You refer to at-home consumption, but you have to get the product to home. You
Mhm.
said they're not getting it at drugstores, they're not getting it at C stores. Has the volume shifted to supermarkets, or is it online, or where is it you have seen that particular growth?
All of the above. There is a candy aisle in the grocery store, and we sell in larger pack sizes there. So sometimes margins aren't as good as selling individual bars at C-store, but uh, that's where we sell larger amounts, bigger bags, family size, sharing size, things like that. Um, and then we saw a huge shift to online. As you see, everyone was ordering groceries online, and that whole shift
Sure.
that happened, we would have never thought that under normal times we wouldn't have seen that big increase in adoption of online shopping, and now we do. So we were already ready for it. It just was a small part of our business.
And I'm trying to think about the impact of Halloween, which I see as big candy giving time. Certainly in my neighborhood it is. And then not too far from right now, we have Valentine's Day coming up.
Mhm.
And so I'm curious about the impact on Halloween and how that has influenced you for what you're doing in anticipation of Valentine's Day.
Well, when we went into lockdown, it was right before Easter. And we sort of panicked. We thought Easter is our second biggest holiday for the Hershey company. And we wondered what was Easter going to be like, if people couldn't have family over. And remember, that was really the height of like when a lot of states had actually locked down, the ones that were following CDC. And so we did a push to have do a lot of different efforts against celebrating Easter at home. What would that look like, and how could that include candy? And they were successful. It came right. I mean, it was like boom, boom. We had to get it done, so we didn't get to do as much. But we took that learning into Halloween, and early on, we decided um, that we were going to go all in on Halloween. That we felt that Halloween would be, in fact, celebrated, and that we were not going to pull back. Because when you sell into stores, you sell in way ahead of the season, and you do have to give some guidance to the store. We're a category captain in most, for candy, and so we are giving advice on what we think the season's going to look like. And so we sort of all held hands, and including some of our big retailers, and said, we're going to go all out on Halloween. We think it's going to happen. And that isn't to say that we didn't have a few sleepless nights over that, because if we didn't sell through, that impacts the sell-in the following year. It impacts our relationship with our key customers, et cetera. And what did we do? Well, we did several things. We did a bunch of work with Google to identify some user-generated video of how people were celebrating already and things they were planning to do. And we used that as some of our advertisement. We cut them down to 6-second videos, put them on YouTube, etc. We worked with a study that we found. My PR folks were ingenious. They found a study that was being worked on. I believe it was by Harvard at the time. Sorry, not Wharton. And but it was through the Costume Association. We had been talking to all of our associations about Halloween and really reaching out and trying to see if we could work together to make this happen. And they were doing a study that was on, like, by your CDC rating, what were suggested activities. So some said you could go trick-or-treating, some said you couldn't. And so we did not want to be in the position like, yes, we went all in on Halloween. That doesn't mean we wanted to advocate anything that we felt was unsafe. Like, that was off the table. Like, we were not going to say, oh, you should go trick-or-treating. That was not happening. So we just want to know what was safe, what could we advocate for. And so we worked with them, and we produced this whole document that said by zip code you could look and see what were your choices. And then we gave people like all sorts of choices of things you could do. You could have a party at home, you could do a hide and seek, like hiding candy in different rooms, you could, what I mean, like all these different things. And then there were all this user generated stuff of people doing tubes that they sent candy down a tube down the street, all the way to, there were some places where you could safely, staying 6 feet apart, wearing a mask, could trick or treat. So we did everything, and we supported that. We did ads. We changed all of our advertising to be what we would call neutral to trick or treating. Like, it didn't involve trick or treating in any of the ads. It was more about just enjoying the season or something spooky, or, you know what I mean? Something like that. So we just went on. I cannot tell you how many levels we took this, and we worked it it was unbelievable. We had probably at least 50 different media plans depending on the market and the sell-through, and we were monitoring it every single week by sell-through and like rejiggering our media plans. So we just went all out on Halloween in so many different ways. And we had the best Halloween that Hershey has ever had in the history of the company.
Wow.
So it was a huge success by everyone. I mean, our sales force, our retailers, I mean, everyone. But we did in the marketing department everything we could to make it happen.
Oh, this is a great story, Jill, especially, as Dave mentioned, I'm the director of Wharton Customer Analytics. So, when I hear about companies embracing data, embracing kind of a careful design, monitoring, as you just said, kind of looking at different plans based on what happens, I think great success story. Anything that you feel was particularly poignant in that, like, any particular data marker you felt was something that was very useful and that might actually remain over time? Like once things go back to normal, would certain things still keep popping up, you feel?
Think about that. Well, okay, I don't know that this is a data marker, so it might be more my just feeling about this. But going into Halloween, when we first looked at it, we were scared to death. And the thing I said was, the one thing I'll never underestimate is parents' desire to make something good for their children. And so I said, let's make that the heart of everything we do. That what we want to do is not spoil another holiday. We got cheated out of 4th of July. We got cheated out of, like, what are we going to do to make this special? And to the extent that parents can do that. So I think that's my learning, is that as we keep going on, because this is going to hang around for a bit longer. I mean, thrilled there's a vaccine, but it's going to, in our everyday life, hang around for a bit longer, is that desire for parents to want to have a normal childhood for their children and make it as special as they can.
Yeah. I like the notion of not spoiling the holiday while you're also spoiling your kids.
Yes, exactly.
That part, I really like that. So I'm real curious in terms of your marketing spending, and there's sort of two components of that. Did you increase or decrease your marketing spending, or did you just change the content, or did you change how you were communicating? I heard you say a lot of user generated components.
Yeah, but we put money behind them. It wasn't just that we were like highlighting them or anything. It was, we then recut them into what you would call a YouTube 6-second video, and they were commercially used. Like, we recut them for that purpose. Our spending stayed, it's sort of interesting. It stayed about flat. However, it did go down a little, not because we were cutting back and spending at all. In fact, we have more impressions than we had the prior year. So we did, in my mind, like go all in and not cut any spending at all. But, a lot of media came down in price. So we were able to reinvest. So things like Facebook and YouTube came down, and Instagram came down dramatically. So with those price decreases, we were able to reinvest that money and get way more for it. So I would argue that we made a spending increase in many ways. So that was good. And we gained a tremendous amount of share from our competitors during this period too. They have not been able to react as well as we have. And so it resulted in a huge share gains for us. But we did that. We did also, at the same time, we've been playing around. This has nothing to do with the pandemic, but we've been playing around. I shouldn't say playing around. We're taking it very seriously, and we have invested a lot in it. But we've developed an agile, 2 agile teams that are constantly testing new media theories. And we're reinvesting based on those. So that was going on at the exact same time, trying to understand where we have halo, where we don't, where we can advertise less on one brand, but spend it back on other brands. So we are iterating tests on a 2-week basis year round now. And we're reinvesting those dollars as well.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear. I want to pick up on one particular point Julie made, and there were 2 or 3 points I want to talk about, but I want to give Dave a chance to ask a question too. But one particular point that you made was about, stealing share from the competitors. One of the things that Dave and I have witnessed when we've had these conversations is that brand has become a lot more important for consumers potentially during this time. The comfort, trust, whatever the case might be. Do you sort of see something similar in that the fact that you were able to perhaps invest in the right media channels because of your testing and learning, kind of find the right people, What are some of the reasons you feel that you were able to kind of take some of the share away from your competitors?
Um, in all honesty, so in the candy category, there aren't really generic players for the most part, so or store brands. So we do have that benefit. We
Of course.
already have that sort of brand affinity. So I don't know that I can say that like it has in other brands. Um, they say things like Jello or up, like brands that are old that you like had some love for. I don't
Yeah.
think that has happened to us particularly, because I think we just were always there and we don't have a lot of that competition. Um, we stole share because we were ready. So we have very advanced plants. We have a superior sales force, and we were able to nail down our supply chain and continue to deliver to our stores. And so when the need for comfort and candy went up, we were able to be on shelf. And don't ever underestimate the importance of that. I'd
Of
love to
course.
say it's my marketing, but a lot of it had to do with we were there and they weren't, and we just decided to go for it. Like when we saw that and we could keep advertising and we could keep the gas on the pedal, we did.
Great.
Right. Often referred to as the first moment of truth being there on the shelf, and
Mm-hmm.
apparently it was true for you.
Mm-hmm.
You've talked about various things that you've done, and it sounds like you were ready, as you just said, and you've done a number of innovative steps. I'm curious what it is that, once we get past this pandemic, what is it you anticipate is going to persist? That is, which of the things that you've started doing that you weren't doing before are the new Hershey and are sort of sticky from what it is that you've learned during this process.
It's funny, they probably don't have so much to do with marketing. So I think that's going to be sort of the surprise of it. I will, number one, I've told my whole staff this, I'm going to wear a mask on a plane forever. I fly so much in my
Yeah.
work and I'm always sick. And I decided this is going to be my new thing. I go, just
Yeah,
so you
right.
all know, I'm wearing a mask on a plane. Um, okay. So in all seriousness, I think it's how much we communicated. The level of communication that increased during this time, even though we all went virtual, um, has been like uh, by a magnitude of order of magnitude. Like we are talking so much more because you have to in order. It used to be that you just sort of get by with like dropping by a desk on your way back from a meeting or whatever. But I feel like our communication has increased dramatically and it's increased on a personal level. Like we are checking in. How do you feel? How's it going? Are you able to work today? It's like this focus on the human beings that we're working with and how much your performance has to do with your ability to connect, understand the purpose, understand what we're working towards, why we're doing what we're doing. It just got so focused during this time. And I think that's really helped us as a team. Like there is a feeling. So we have a lot of companies do this. We call it Many Voices, One Hershey, MVOH. It's like a survey of,
Yeah.
and it's been ongoing for years, so that you can compare year over year. Our highest ratings ever were this year.
Oh.
We just got our MVOH results. And so employee connectedness and feeling part of the enterprise and what you're working for is stronger than it's ever been when when we aren't together. And so I think that's what I'm going to take forward is like, how do we keep that up? How do we keep that sort of and not slip back into I'm off to this meeting, I'm off to that meeting. Like just like staying more connected.
No, great point. And I think this idea of kind of understanding, as you said, the purpose, the larger purpose of the organization, perhaps, people already know
Mm-hmm.
it, but in some sense it's resurfaced perhaps due to this pandemic in some ways. Jill, as we are close to wrapping up, I think I'd love to hear your thoughts on, obviously at Hershey's, because of perhaps being ready, because of having the right team in place, because of the innovative testing and learning that you were doing, lots of things kind of fell into place. What would be your advice for other leaders who are going through this pandemic now and perhaps a few more months coming forward? What would be your advice to them in terms of kind of how should they be navigating the next few months?
I think anyone who's made it this far, I would say, uh, take a deep breath and just know that we're going to have to keep going for a bit longer. I mean, to me, that's sort of the advice is like, what are we going to do to just keep moving forward? And and it's not going to be that much longer, so just keep the push going, is probably what I would say. I think the big thing though now to me is just as we looked forward to Halloween, what we're doing as a team is looking forward to what's next. Like, how do you come out of this pandemic, and how will that affect consumption of our products? How does that affect what's going to happen? I think there is going to be this huge release of energy. I'm not sure where it's going to go. We've been talking a lot about it in our team.
Yep.
Like, what does that look like? And if it coincides, which another big time for us is back to school, if it coincides with back to school, what happens? On the more negative side, I believe if it happens at that time, what I've been talking to all my leaders of teams about is I expect us to have a huge shortage of man hours, because I think no one's taken a vacation. I mean, at least in my teams, like no one's taken vacation for two reasons. One is we've been so incredibly busy, but secondly, because where are you going to go and what are you going to do? Nothing. So I think there's going to be this huge explosion of people taking vacation, and rightfully so. But I think we're going to be down man hours. Like, how are we going to get the work done? And I really have cautioned everyone to think about that. Like, let's talk about focusing our lists. Let's talk about what we're doing, because I think you're just going to see it. Summer is going to hit, and you always have sort of that moment of summer where everyone, we're based in a winter climate. So where, people's heads are elsewhere. It's going to be triple this time.
Yep.
So I just think we got to look at how do we get all the work done.
No, so excellent points. I think one of the things that is just pent up is indeed people getting ready to go travel. Mm-hmm. And I think we're going to see that. The question is it going to happen just in an instant? Or is there going to be, I've got vaccinated, I can travel, and it's going to evolve. And so that might make the man hour issue a little bit easier for us. But I think great insights. It's not surprising to be talking to Jill Baskin at Hershey and having such sweet insights. So I do appreciate it. I know I'm speaking for both Raghu and myself. We appreciate you taking the time. And thank you very much for sharing it with us. And stay healthy and take care.
Thank you. You're so welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.